everybody, and welcome to Culture and Convictions. We are so glad that you chose to push play, and you are now welcome at our table. I am Iron Petrie, along with my wife, Star Petrie.
Hey, everybody.
And we are glad to be here on another podcast. Listen, before we jump into all of the subject matter that we have to talk about here today, let me just start by saying make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you are probably watching this podcast, because we need your feedback to know who we're talking to and how we're doing and what you want to hear talked about on this particular podcast, because as we say, nothing is off limits here on Culture and Convictions. So please like and subscribe, and also go and follow us on our Facebook page at Culture and Convictions on Facebook, as well as visiting cultureandconvictions.com, the website. So you can go there, peruse the site, check us out, follow us, and we got a blog there. We've got some other information about ourselves and what we're attempting to do through our podcast. And we're just so happy to be back in the saddle, and doing this thing and and now moving up and doing it by way of video, and also as we started off on audio, but now we've kind of moved uptown, as they say. We're doing it by way of video. So we're glad to have you here. And as I said, we've got so many topics and so many things to kind of talk about on this particular podcast. So we're going to kind of jump right into them. And me being a good Texas boy, born and raised here, Texas is all I know. Mm-hmm. I got to start off with a little lighthearted information and subject matter. And I got to just say, how about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys, man?
Say, ask me in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But and look, and I'm not trying to come across like I'm just the ultimate Cowboy fan. Yeah. I do root for the home team, but it's good to see them actually having some success. See them on a streak. But they're getting ready to play the Eagles this weekend, and it's going to be an interesting game for the first time in a long time. The funny thing is that Cowboys games actually in this little small stretch, they're actually meaning something. No, I'm serious. Like, when you're having a bad season, the games, the more you're losing, the less the games mean. But now actually these games mean something. People are tuning in to actually watch the outcome. Right. And so they're playing the Eagles. They're first in their division, and they're playing the Eagles. And one of the Eagles came out, a linebacker, Kareem Hunt, I believe is his name. And he comes out and he says the history of the Cowboys is they choke, right? Yeah. And so he says, we're going to go up there to Dallas and we're going to make them choke. So if Dallas didn't have any motivation, which I'm pretty sure they have, the fact they're on this streak, right. Now they got all the motivation in the world because this man is coming out talking
Thanks
trash
a lot, about
it. Yeah. He made the game even more meaningful.
Give you 5 minutes on camera, man, and then you.
Yeah, and so he's putting it out there like that, and people are just blowing up, Twitter and everything else talking about it. But for the first time in a long time, the Cowboys have something to play for, so that's exciting for Texas people, because the boys haven't been doing so well.
After Jerry Jones built that stadium, there were high hopes, and
yeah.
And then hadn't panned out.
Yeah, and then the most exciting thing about the stadium was the screen.
Exactly.
And what was on the field.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got a $1 billion enterprise over there when people are just standing up watching them lose. I mean, I'm just saying there are some committed, diehard Cowboys fans. So
serious business.
I hope for their sakes that there's some success on the Cowboys' ends. Because, when you're a fan, if you're a real fan, tried and true, then you ride with your team regardless. I mean, that. Hurricanes, but yeah. So
oh no, see, you didn't have to do that.
What?
You just dug, just like.
No, I'm a Hurricane fan too. In that I try to.
For those watching and listening who may not know,
what?
I am a true dyed in the wool, double dipped and fried. Yeah, you understand? Crispy fried. Miami Hurricanes football fan.
He calls them his babies.
They're my babies.
Like, what?
Hey, I'm old enough now to say that.
Did you adopt anybody?
They're my babies, and I root for them. I've been a diehard Miami Hurricane fan since I was, since I was 10 years old, and it's real, and it won't go away. But anyway, we ain't doing so well. But hey, I'm riding anyway.
I digress.
Because I'm a real fan.
I was just talking about real fans. I wasn't trying to like hurt your feelings.
Yeah,
Everything's
but you
fine.
stuck me.
Everything's fine.
You still stuck me.
No, but like I said, I hope the Cowboys have success. I mean, there's nothing better than watching Jerry Jones get excited about his Cowboys winning.
Oh,
So,
man.
or hearing him talk
Goodness
after the
gracious.
game. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be exciting if it's nothing else because, I mean, like I said, now we've actually got something to play for.
If they make it to the Super Bowl, then all I got to say is, oh my gosh, DFW is going to be crazy.
I don't see that happening.
It's going to be
but
crazy.
I'm just, I don't even want to let my mind go there because I don't think that's possible.
One can dream.
It is possible, but no, it would be big news for everybody. It would be big news for Texas because for whatever reason, the fan base here in Texas, when it comes to the Cowboys, I'm talking when you really come across some real true Cowboy fans, it's like. And I don't mean this in a negative way because I think a certain amount of this happens in every real fan of any team.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a little delusional type of I'm serious because it's almost like if the Cowboys win anything, they can win everything. And you just never know when the Cowboys can do this and that and the other.
I don't understand why any fan wouldn't feel like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But it's slightly, sometimes you can run into fans who are a little bit more down to earth about it. No, they don't look too good. There's some fan bases that, they can be 1-8. They win that next game and they're 2-8, and they're like, man, you just never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
I mean, but if your team gets hot at the close of the season, you know what I mean? There's some high hopes that they can carry that momentum into the playoffs and get somewhere.
It is. We'll see.
You know what I mean?
Like I say, I'm not against them at all.
And I'm not a Cowboy fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch,
know you're not a Cowboy fan.
I'm not against the Cowboys. I just, they've disappointed so often.
But I'm not going to stick you like you stuck me.
I don't have a team to be stuck by.
Spurs?
Yes. Okay.
San Antonio?
All right.
Spurs?
All right. Let's move on.
Their names happen to be Spurs?
Yeah. That's all right. It's called a rebuilding.
See, I told you I could stick you. I wasn't going to do it, but since you act like you didn't have a team, I had to do it.
It's called a rebuilding year, and we'll be fine.
Exactly.
We'll be fine.
We're rebuilding.
Exactly. Every team does.
That's what we doing.
They go through it.
That's right.
This isn't our year. That's all right, though, because we rebuilt one time, and we came back with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and we ran the tables.
Yeah.
Y'all know the history.
Check
the facts.
That is what that was.
There you go.
That's what
so we'll
that
be
was.
fine. Pop knows what he's doing.
Yeah, okay. We'll see.
Moving on. So I saw a story that caught my attention because around here in the South period, we are Chick-Fil-A fans, right?
Big time.
People will get in line. I mean, you'll see cars, at least here in our town.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, cars are out to the street.
They've had to do some new construction at our Chick-fil-A in our town.
Because it's crazy. It's nuts.
People are everywhere.
And people will stay in that line until the Lord comes back. But they're going to make sure that they get that chicken sandwich, right? It's very serious business.
I've only seen it equaled by Starbucks. That's the only thing that, and it even doesn't equal it. To be quite honest, not here. I mean, Starbucks is crazy, but here, man, Chick-fil-A is.
It's everything.
It's everything.
So when they close the Chick-fil-A down on, we have this main strip here in TK, and when they close that down, they put the Chick-fil-A that was in the mall opened a drive-through, and people were acting like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Chick-fil-A." I don't know what I was gonna do for the next 6 weeks. I was just like, people, it's fried
serious,
chicken,
man.
you know what I mean? But it's serious business. So anyway,
serious everywhere.
Rider University. I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't know what they were thinking. But Rider University.
And where is Rider?
They're in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, right?
Yeah, which is why they were able to even get away with such tomfoolery. Because they're
they could have done that in the South. No.
Because people would be like, burn the school to the ground.
Yeah, they would have
burn it down.
No, it wouldn't work.
But Rider University sent out a poll to their student body and said, "Hey guys, what franchises would you like to see on campus?" And one of the options, I guess, on the original ballot was Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, yeah.
And Chick-fil-A got a lot of votes. And then, of course, once the school officials got word back that Chick-fil-A was kind of the front runner, Chick-fil-A magically disappeared from the ballots.
Yeah, so they take the ballots back, took Chick-fil-A off, and then reissued this.
Correct.
Because they didn't want Chick-fil-A because...
They said that their corporate values were not progressive enough. And so that's an interesting thought, right? That your
Yeah.
progressive, that your corporate values are not progressive enough. It's like it's our corporate values, and nobody forces you to go spend your money at Chick-fil-A. I mean, even if they put Chick-fil-A on the campus, I mean, Chick-fil-A is only going to stay open if what? If people go and spend their money there at Chick-fil-A.
But so, it's so horrible because it's like, first of all, they ask the student bodies, to vote, right? Mm-hmm. And then when the student body tells you what they want, you then say, never mind.
This ain't about y'all. this ain't about the students.
We asking y'all what you want, but it really ain't about y'all.
Yeah, it's not about y'all.
So then they come back and they say, no, we're not going to do it because their corporate values don't align with ours. And specifically dealing with Dan Cathy, of course, talking about him being in support of marriage being between a man and a woman several years ago.
Right.
And so
but that's not a corporate value.
That's not a corporate value. That's a personal value.
That's a personal value
of the CEO.
Correct. But that's not a corporate value.
That's crazy. But I mean, it goes to show, like I say, man, we've been so politicized. Everything is getting so politicized. Everywhere. We're politicizing the humanity out of each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Where people can't even go eat chicken.
Each other, like, yeah.
They can't even go eat chicken. Can't eat what they want to eat.
Sandwich. It's just a sandwich.
Yeah, and it's
not a statement.
It's perfect for college.
Oh, of course.
Perfect for college.
I can't tell y'all how many times we tore up Chick-fil-A when I was in school. Oh, my gosh. That was the joint. Because everything was already pre-made. You just went over there, grabbed a sandwich, grabbed your fries, you out. But, yeah, I feel sorry for you, Ryder, because you don't get the experience, man. They're cheating you guys out of a great really part of college life, you know.
It's a sad deal. Like I said, politics has trumped everything to the point where now people can't move in life to make very basic, normal decisions. Like, who goes and sits down at the restaurant of their choice thinking about whether their corporate values align with some political idea or some social stand?
Most of us as consumers don't do that in anything.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody, because if we were to get that picky,
we'd be shocked.
Oh my gosh, and just start peeling back the covers of every place that we go and we decide to eat at or go and drink coffee or go wherever, shop for our clothes or whatever, we would be shocked and everybody would just be up in arms and nobody'd have anything to eat, drink,
no place to spend
no place to live, no place to spend their money. You know what I'm saying? The world that's not how the world works. And the fact that they would do that at a school, like I said, after how do you offer people a ballot
options
and then tell them
just
psych?
Kidding. Just kidding.
That's just nuts, man.
Like,
but that's our world.
Salivating for Chick-fil-A. Now you gonna tell me, I was gonna hold on for another 2 years.
That's our world, though, man. Yeah. That's the world we live in now. It's just nuts, living
crazy.
On our heads.
It really is crazy. But is Chick-fil-A bothered?
Doubt it.
Because I'm telling you, they making money hand over fist. Yes. Everywhere I go in Texas, when I travel, if you find the Chick-fil-A, especially around lunchtime, dinner time, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like, should I go in? Will it make a difference? Yes. Should I stay in the drive-thru? Will it make a difference? Because it doesn't
generating
matter. It's
millions annually. Millions. As a matter of fact, I think they're the top. At one point, they were the top. I don't know if it's still true today, but the top as far as restaurant chains and fast food chains. I mean, Chick-fil-A, man, they're big. But, I mean, when you go in there, the way they treat you, the way it's
their pleasure. It's like, it's your pleasure to serve me? Wow.
My pleasure.
That's refreshing.
Just the entire way in which they go about doing business. It really is a business model that people should be trying to copy in whatever field that they're in because, man, they're doing it. Just you got to tip your hat.
You do. So that was an interesting story. I just thought, like I said, for shame for the Rider University students not to be able to choose. Because they talk about not being inclusive enough, that Chick-fil-A is not inclusive, and yet the first thing they do is become very exclusive in how they treat Chick-fil-A. But we'll move on. And then the next story, of course, was a big story surrounding the NFL, and that was the issue Kareem Hunt and the altercation in the hallway of a hotel. Your thoughts?
My thoughts immediately after seeing the video, because everybody, of course, it took off and went everywhere, that really his actions were indefensible. They really were. I mean, there's not a whole lot anything he could say or do to really defend his actions, because when you look at the actual video, he is the person to initiate contact with the young lady, irregardless of what she said.
In what we saw.
Right. Now, they could have had
happened in
beforehand. Yeah, exactly. Where they started the video.
Sure.
he's walking out into the hallway and he's, talking to her or whatever, and then he makes a motion to look like push her or something, and they're in each other's face, and he makes the motion to push her, then she comes back at him. But just on its face, these young men, and I hate to frame it like this because everybody says, well, these young men in the NFL have got to learn. No, it's a lesson for men, period, regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of where you are and how much you make or whether you're in the public eye or not. It's a lesson for men that men are going to have to learn, and we're going to talk about it because I think there are other sides to this story that need to be examined when it comes to these types of things because they're happening a lot. Yeah. And they've been happening a lot, but now they're being videoed more often, I should say.
TMZ.
Because TMZ
Jeez Louise.
is, if they're not Big Brother, they like everywhere.
If you ever get a name, you just stay at home.
Yeah. But anyway, these young men are going to have to learn and how to be reconnected to a certain degree of chivalry and understanding that as a man, there's certain ways you don't behave. And they can go for the women as well, which we'll talk about that. Absolutely. But as it pertains to him, it's just indefensible. It's sad. He's made a really big mistake. Young man, just getting started in his career. Yeah. And perhaps, I don't know what the NFL will do with him. I know the Chiefs have released him and everything. I don't know what's going to happen to him in the future, but hopefully he can learn from this, whether he gets back into the NFL or not, going forward in his life. There are just some things you don't do, man. There's just some stuff you gotta be above it.
Yeah, and I get your point. What you're saying about them, not the idea though is that these young men, I'm sure, get some level of counseling, and they get some level of,
or should if they don't.
Correct. Hey guys, you're now a public figure. You're making a good sum of money, and there are going to be opportunities for you to get into situations. How should you respond and react in these situations? I think a lot of it is, just being very, very immature, and then also inviting immature people to hang out with you. Because if you surround yourself with a bunch of idiots and a bunch of immature people, you're going to end up in a lot of difficult circumstances and making dumb decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have no one there that can actually just say, it's probably a good idea if you leave and we all just leave, and that way, nothing like this happens.
And a lot of these young men, and like you say, we believe, or we want to believe, that they're getting some type of counsel, some type of insight into the fact that when you become a public figure and you start to be successful at your profession, as big of a platform and as elevated of a platform as the NFL is, once you start doing good on that stage, it invites a certain amount of scrutiny.
Sure.
It invites a certain amount. It's really like mosquitoes to a light. You're going to start drawing different kinds of attention in different ways. And you can't live your life as loose or as free or as, kind of unthinking as you may have lived it before. Your anonymity is gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
You run around on a field with your last name plastered to your back. And when you do something well, the camera is on you. You're always
on SportsCenter for an entire day.
Yeah, exactly.
Replaying
You're
film.
lauded, you're celebrated. Yeah. And so your life has changed.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to change. And if you're not willing to mature and change, then you might likely find yourself in a situation where you're making very immature decisions that derail your life professionally and personally, like this young man has, because it's happening over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And there are probably many more instances that are happening that aren't on video, right?
Sure.
And so these men have got to start to really mature in that area. They've got to start to learn not to stay, as we say, when we talk to inmates in prison, we tell them don't stay stuck on stupid. At some point you've got to say, let's play this record on the other side.
And it's much easier to learn from someone else's mistakes than to have to go through it. I mean,
no doubt.
We're getting ready to kind of play his mea culpa, where he had to, of course, offer his apologies and explanation for the situation that occurred. And the fact of the matter is, he should have never been in that situation. And ultimately, he can't rely on other people to make decisions in his best interest.
No.
At the end of the day, people are attracted to fame, and they're attracted to names and being able to name drop and say who they're hanging out with and post into Instagram. So you attract a lot of junk and a lot of people who are simply looking for what you can do for them, and not the other way around.
And let me say this, that's a part of the scenario that even though when these men do this stuff, like I said, it's indefensible. You do it, you're wrong, period. You don't put your hands on a woman like that. You don't kick a woman. You got to be above that. But at the same time, one of the things that is not often addressed in the context of how these young men live is the fact that there is a world out there that gathers around these young men with ulterior motives.
Absolutely.
It's a different world. It's just a different world. It's a different reality. Some of those men, when they walk out those locker rooms, it's a whole different reality than when you walk off your job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It is not the same. And so we have to recognize that there's something that has to be done about educating these young men and helping them to mature, to understand how to navigate that and how to grow up in so many areas, but also to really recognize, look, there's a culture and an environment around all industries, whether it's music, whether it's sports. There's always this culture. There's always this subculture. Subculture there that is not always bright and it's not always beautiful. And so we have to sometimes take into account those things when dealing with these young men in context. Like I say, that's not to justify any actions, but just the context of it all.
I'm going to let you guys hear from Kareem because, like I said, he's had to sit down and with Lisa Salter and give his side of the story.
Yeah.
And he sounds like a very, intelligent and contrite guy. I mean, he sounds like he really does know, I messed up. And of course, who wouldn't know that when a team releases you? You know what I mean? That completely changes your life. And then when the outlook of some NFL team picking you up is probably, who knows? That might be a year from now. That might be 2 years from now. It just depends on the optics because everything now is very political. And so, even if a team says, hey, we really like you as a person, even if Kansas City said we really like you as a person, well, we still got to let you go because, there's this videotape and there's no way we can, like you said, get around what's on the tape.
No doubt.
So I'm going to let you hear from him and then we'll kind of wrap this up.
It does matter, though. We need to hear from you how you got to that point. What happened?
It was definitely some things that were said and did that I did not like, and that's not an excuse. It's not, I'm that person in that video did not deserve that. I didn't mean to hurt anybody or anything like that. And it's really tough. It's tough because I feel like I let a lot of people down, and I just really want to, apologize to everybody, the Chiefs organization, my family, and close friends.
Who is this person? How did she end up being in the hallway of your residence?
Honestly, I'd never met the girl before besides that one time. I met her one time, and it was just kind of like I was my first 2 days living at this new place at the 9 in Cleveland, and kind of just had some friends over.
What were you arguing about in the hallway?
It was just a disagreement, and I wanted her just to leave, but it's no excuse for me to act that way or to even, put myself in that position.
Okay, so I'm not gonna play the whole video, but and you can hear that, but it's kind of striking to me that he would say something like, I don't even know this girl. You think about that. It's like you just put yourself in a world of hurt for somebody that you don't even know. Like what did she add to your life or take away? I mean, there was no reason to even let things escalate to that point. And the fact is that he was surrounded by other men who I didn't see really step in. I mean, they kind of were like, yo, bro, probably just, chill out, man. But at the end of the day, it could have been like, I tell you what, I'm going to need you to exit out here. We're going to close and lock this door, and we're going to let you chill out. Because we're not going to get into any. I mean, the man is out in the hallway, So either they were a little tipsy, there's probably alcohol involved, something else involved. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, you cannot afford. I mean, you're making millions of dollars, right? I mean, you just cannot afford to put yourself in that kind of position, and it's really sad. Because, like I said, he's got so many. There's so many people that you can list, from Ray Rice to
my goodness,
what's his name, Larry
Johnson.
Larry Johnson. I mean, there's so many people that he can go down the list and say, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
And for all these young men in any industry in which your star starts to rise, young man, you're going to have to change. I mean, and I know, I know people don't recognize that you can't be what you were once you reach a certain status in the public eye. You cannot live that same life. And these young men have to realize also, if you're going to engage in certain activities, whether you're going to the club all the time, trying to make it rain, quote unquote, whether you're going out with friends, drinking and smoking weed and all this other stuff, whether you're doing all of these things you consider to be fun or whatnot and what have you, there are certain activities that open you up to a greater probability that you're going to make a dumb decision because somebody else there under the influence is going to do something dumb themselves. It's like you can't put yourself in that environment, and you have to ask yourself, who am I? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And how long do I want to experience this success? Because now he knows
it can be gone just like
in a
that.
second. In
Just
a second,
like
you
that.
wake up unemployed.
Yeah.
And
the thing about
and that's it.
The thing about it is, he probably didn't know that videotape existed.
No.
You know what I mean? He probably did not know
Well,
that.
he said he didn't know it.
And so, from that perspective, he's going through life thinking that thing is behind him.
Yeah.
And then, boom, you know what I mean? You wake up the next morning and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting called to the office.
Because that happened back in February, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got basically the greater part of a whole year that has gone by in your life, and you've played well and had a great career so far, and you're doing well and you're doing super. And then all of a sudden, boom. And so it goes to show, though, you just have to be wise, and these young men have to learn to embrace the maturity necessary for success. That if you're going to do it, you just go ahead and lock in, brother, because you've got to change. There's some things that are going to have to change about the way in which you do your life.
And there's also this, we've talked about this before, but there's just really this lack of mentorship when it comes to manhood.
True.
It's okay.
So
it's okay
true.
if a man doesn't have a dad. It happens so often. That's okay. That's not a sin or a fault against that child or that young man that's grown up. But there are opportunities, certainly and prayerfully in one's life, where you meet people that do try to sow into your life and give you wisdom that can take you a little bit further down the road. And then hopefully you meet somebody else to get you a little bit further down the road with something that they impart. And so, what's really disheartening to me is kind of the brashness of this generation, these younger kids who just kind of feign having anybody speak, discipline or requirements, you know what I mean, when it comes to their behavior socially. I'm not talking about professionally. Everybody knows I got to get this money. So if I want this money, money is the motivator. I got to get my body right. I got to eat right. I got to do right. So they have that down. But when we're talking about the person who you really are, why are they having such difficulties standing in the pocket in life and doing what's right? And I think a lot of it, like I said, it is because they did not have a father. That's true, but it's not because there aren't people there, I don't think, to mentor them and to show them what they're to do. I just think this generation is very brash, and I think they think they know everything. They think they've arrived at some level of truth, which is theirs. Which is why it's so scary, right? Because there is no solid yes or no. Everything is gray, and so they make decisions in the gray instead of making decisions that are very much like, I cannot put my hands on that woman because that is wrong. I cannot push her in the hallway nor kick her because that is wrong.
And you're so right. And it's that loss of a previous generation or generations before, that for a lot of men, not every man, sometimes manhood has been, it's a landmine, and it has always been. So is womanhood. It's just life. But for a lot of men, these were things that were established when they were born into a family with a father, who didn't put his hands on their mother, showed respect, taught that masculinity and the strength of masculinity was not for abuse or control, but taught that strength was for service, that strength was for protection, that strength was for guidance. It wasn't this controlling mechanism, And so when you lose that fathering, and you have a generation that is, as you say, in essence, really raising themselves in so many ways, you take that kid, and I'm not saying this is the case of Kareem Hunt, but you take so many kids that fall in this category, and then you thrust them into the limelight of success and millions.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're talking about millions of dollars, we're talking about making more money than 95% of the human population.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're talking about you going from here to being, whether you know it or not or feel like it or not,
Sure.
you're living better than most of the entire planet.
Sure.
And you put these kids in this position, and then you turn the light on them, and then all of the things that comes with that now. This sense of being somebody now that's attached to money or fame, this sense of having power now that's attached to money or fame, this sense of attraction, people coming at you for all kinds of reasons all the time. And then for a lot of young men, now all of a sudden your name and your is all over the place.
Right.
So these young men get thrust into that, and they haven't had that foundation. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for waste, if not ending in disaster, because they have no understanding of how to value it, and they don't have any understanding of real stewardship of what they've been given, because a lot of that is downloaded from a father, and it comes from that mentoring and that training and that teaching and that guidance. And teaching a young man that how wisdom causes enduring riches. Yeah. That it's not just about the acquisition of riches; it's about riches that last.
And also that responsibility is learned. You know what I mean? Just because I give you something doesn't impart responsibility. No. And we know that because we give stuff to our kids, and next thing you know, it's broken. And I just paid $20 for that. Why is it on the floor? Why is it missing pieces? Right? So we understand that just because I give you something doesn't mean that all of a sudden you get this idea of responsibility. And it's no different for these young people who find success in any type of avenue and venue, whether it's acting or arts or sports. It doesn't matter. No. Just because I sign a check and man, I'm a millionaire, I don't even understand what that means. Nor do I understand how to be responsible. Like I've never been responsible for anything. Even my talent to a great degree, I have not been responsible for. Why? Because I went to college and I had a trainer and I had a coach and I had people telling me get up, go weight lift, go eat this, do that. So even in that sense, by the time they make it to the pros, it doesn't necessarily mean that they understand what responsibility is. No.
But you're seeing it.
But you're seeing that. Yeah. So my heart goes out to them because I just feel like so often, and we're gonna kind of segue to this, but we've preached this idea that women are this and women are everything, and we now need to move the focus to women. But truly what has hurt our world is a lack of leadership and a lack of manhood. And the reason why we have so many problems, I think, in our homes, in our civics, in our politics, in our daily lives, is just a lack of leadership. And regardless of how people feel about it, God has created the man to lead. Yeah. He is to be first. And when he's not there, everyone else is exposed, and everybody else is now trying to scramble to fill a role that they weren't built for, a role that they weren't created to have to do. So just, my heart goes out to the young man. I mean, that's a lot to take on, especially for something like that to become public. But certainly, it's a story for so many. And hopefully the kids behind him are watching this and saying, you know what? I think I'm going to switch friends. You know what I mean? I'm going to give me some nerdy friends who don't want to do anything, but just watch movies and eat popcorn.
And keep your hands off of women.
Absolutely.
Just put your hands, sit on your hands, do whatever you got to do. But there's too many things you can do.
There's too many things.
Aside from putting your hands in a violent manner on another woman. And that's coming from a man who has a wife and a daughter. Keep your hands off women. You understand what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? There's just so many other things you can do. Yeah. But like I said, we're going to talk about this a little bit, because one of the things that has to be shared, though, too, and you alluded to it, and I believe this is where you're going in your next topic, is this feminist movement in which we have seen a change in how can I say this? the definition of what it means to be a female or feminine, and how now there is this war, this gender battle and gender war between men and women. And you're seeing women become much more assertive and aggressive in ways that were not consistent with the traditional definition of femininity. Right? So even in this particular video with Kareem Hunt, okay, Kareem makes a violent move toward the young lady to push her off, right? This young lady returns back and takes a swing at him. Now, I mean, this is an NFL professional football player.
Yeah.
Okay, this man gets hit for a living by grown men bigger and stronger than him. Contact confrontation is his life. Okay, when you're a running back in the NFL, that's what it is, right? Yeah. So this is how he lives. This is what he knows. And this woman is trying to hit him, and you sit back and I marvel at that. Now, is it to say, okay, the woman has a right to defend herself? Yes, she does, but you're not going to hardly be successful defending yourself against a grown NFL football player, and she was not a very big woman at all. And my thing is, what has happened to us that now, this happens a lot, where you're seeing, and even statistically, it's talking about the uptick in the increase in male abuse from females in relationships, where you're seeing this very aggressive manly feminism or femininity, if you would, where women are starting to behave outside of the traditional context of what femininity and being a woman is. And how I think this type of departure from the traditional gender definitions that we have seen derived from years and years and years and years and years, of course, thousands of years of human history, that we believe as Christians in a creator, that God created us with these asymmetries for a reason. We're seeing this happen, and I think it's creating a real crisis in male-female relationships.
Of course.
I really do.
Of course.
Number one, you got men. I always say it this way, and it goes back to the lack of fathering, the lack of mentoring, but for this particular point, specifically a father. When a generation comes along that has had no father, you have boys who don't know what it means to be responsible and don't know what responsibility is. But you have young women who don't know how to require it. And you have young women who suffer from things as well.
Yeah.
And everybody talks real big about what the boys suffer from. But our young women are suffering from it as well. And it's creating a very tough feminism and femininity that I would like to know your thoughts about, because I see it happening so much now.
Yeah.
That it's really a really big deal, and I think it's really causing a lot of strain.
I think a lot of it for men and for boys and for girls, for men and women, it is the lack of fathering. And truthfully, it's the fact that in this generation we've become so accustomed to everybody saying "do you," and we've become accustomed to everybody blurring lines about everything. Be fluid. If you want to act butch today, act butch today. If you want to act feminine tomorrow, act feminine tomorrow. You just do you and be your full self. Fully realize who you are, but understanding that nobody can do that without a clear definition of where they came from, or where they originated from. So it goes back to Genesis, and you and I have talked about this before, but it's so profound and people miss it, that God, in all of his creation, he goes through the entire first chapter of Genesis telling everything that he's made that it's good. And that's critical for all of us.
It's very critical.
It's very critical, because without God saying that we are good, how do we get down the road to any sort of morality or civility amongst each other? It has to start from the very genesis of being good. Yeah. But the importance of the father is that he's there to reiterate that.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so his place in the home is irreplaceable, because you have to have that man telling his wife, telling his children that they're good too. And I think so often in our society we don't have that. No. So as a result, women don't know, is their femininity good? Is it good enough? Is it okay if I'm demure and if I want to serve in my home and be domestic?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bad thing because everybody tells me that I can work and I can bring home the bacon and I can fry it up too.
Yeah.
And this idea that who even wants to do that? I mean, seriously, at some point I would like somebody else to fry my bacon. I'm just being honest.
Well, and I mean, you make a great point there. It's like having it all and doing it all don't line up on the same page. And I know people are like, oh, I'm going to have it all. Yeah. Well, but there's a doing part of that.
There is a doing part of that. And you only have 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just, the reality is the older I've gotten, the more I understand why so many people enjoy being stay-at-home mothers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I miss that. I want that for myself. But I digress. In talking about, I'm serious. In talking about, though, these women who have become very, very forward in how they deal with men. I mean, even to see that video, I just think to myself, what would ever possess you to come back at an NFL football player? Like, what can you do to me? I mean, he can knock your block off is what he can do. And over what? But the question is, who was wrong? Was he totally in the wrong? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But does she bear some responsibility also? Of course she does. And so for me, it's just the framing of the conversation that it's Kareem Hunt or it's just that man, instead of understanding that it takes two. You know what I mean? And we cannot act as though women automatically come with this, oh, I'm so moral and so pure as the driven snow that I would never cause this issue.
Any kind of issue. Yeah.
Right. That I could be just as culpable in a situation if we don't do some real investigation about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are no doubt. You look at not too long ago, they released the gentleman, was it Ray Caruth? I think used to play in the NFL, ended up having his girlfriend killed and in her, of course, maiming and causing his own child to come out, with handicaps. Yeah. So here's a case in which there are men out there who are ticking time bombs. They're egotistical. They're full of pride. They're self-centered. And borderline, they're so eat up with it, they really are volatile human beings. Yeah. And they are people they can't be trusted. They don't need to be in relationships because they don't know themselves. They haven't developed. There are cases of arrested development out there in men that are really ticking time bombs. And so we've seen that, we know that, and of course nobody would condone or justify that. But then what is not talked about is that there are a ton of male-female relationships in which men are framed as the all in all, just the violator.
You're the villain. Yeah.
And you're the villain. And there have been women in those relationships who provoke, who stir up, who cause, who create more trouble in those men's lives. So where these men respond and they react in ways sometimes, in which nothing's justifiable, but they respond in ways that are angry because they feel like they're being manipulated by this woman. Sure. And in many cases they are. And these are lessons not talked about. It's no different than the current Me Too movement, which, I understand the mobilizing women to speak out against sexual abuse, but Me Too, a movement called Me Too should include anybody who can say Me Too. And what you don't see a lot of included in that Me Too movement are young boys out there who are being molested and abused who can say Me Too. Sure. You see, it's not just a woman thing. Yeah. It is the people who are preying upon very vulnerable children, both male and female. Right. And it's happening all the time. And so when it comes to dealing with these issues in society, instead of framing them male-female, we need to frame them right-wrong. Absolutely. We need to frame them civil and barbaric. We need to frame them along the lines that I think are much clearer than when you start framing things male-female, because when you start doing that, there's going to be something on both sides of that anybody can talk about all the time and really start to tackle these things from a moral law perspective, more than just dealing with male-female differences and issues.
But then we have to actually say who is the moral lawgiver, and nobody wants to get still enough to just say, okay, God, well, let's go back and let's, what did you say? Okay, we're going to do that. Because ultimately we would rather stay in our heads trying to figure out stuff that is clearly explained in a book called the Bible. So it's kind of like, why are we banging our heads against the wall to try to get people to act the way we want them to act or do what we want them to do? But there really is something that needs to be talked about in this loss of femininity, this loss of masculinity, because as we talk about transgenderism and we're making everybody's ism, the thing.
Yeah.
And we're forgetting the fact that we're human beings, and he created them male and he created them female. And that's the bottom line. And ultimately we're meant to be different.
Yeah.
But we're also
Absolutely.
meant to have a certain amount of synergy. That's why when you see a man that loves a woman and a woman that loves that man, there's something just magical about it, right? I mean, that's something that you revere and appreciate.
No doubt.
Because that love is a representative of God himself. You know what I mean? So I just really, this generation has a lot of work to do.
Oh,
and
no doubt
there've been a
about it,
lot
yes.
of setbacks. It's not over. It's not over, but it certainly it makes you wonder. And can I just real quick?
Yeah.
And it's something you ministered a couple of weeks ago, but we cannot forget the importance of images and what people see and what they hear, what they imbibe on a daily basis, and how much that plays into how they respond. I guarantee you, if I went and listened to Kareem Hunt's playlist, or I saw what he was watching that day, I'd be like, oh, so you was watching this?
Yeah.
Oh, you were listening to him. So I can understand how your reaction could be. You get out of my, you know what I mean? Because that's what I've been listening to all day. So I think there really is, and we have to start holding accountable, the stuff that we allow to be entertainment for us. I think it's very telling about our society as a whole, the type of things that we deem entertainment.
Yes. and you're so true. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier. It's, what did he call good? And we honestly do have to start there, because without it, there's nowhere else you can go. And he called good man and woman, male and female. And what people don't realize is that everything, if you look at the whole world, the world is created for balance, to be in balance.
Yep.
Right? You've got summer, you've got winter, you've got sowing, you've got reaping, you've got all of these different things that seem to be opposites, but they're not opposites, they're balance. That's what they are. They're indicative of balance. Male and female is the same.
Yeah.
Masculinity balances femininity. Femininity balances masculinity. When you take those and you try to be quote unquote non-binary, and you try to act as though these asymmetries are not really necessary,
are not interdependent.
Yeah, and they can be kind of taken or left.
Right.
Well, then you throw things out of balance, and so then you end up frustrated because now there's friction in the relationships, and they can never get together. Well, it's because you will not embrace what is good. And like people say, well, they'll say things like you were talking about transgenderism. You're talking about all of these other forms of sexual orientation in which people are embracing all kinds of things and trying to remain fluid, and they're saying, well, God is love. He is love, but he's also right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he's right, then what he says is good and is right, then we have to abide by that. And we find clarity and we find fulfillment in that. It's not some sentence to the doldrums of existence.
And he's not frivolous. He's God. So he didn't have to experiment.
No.
I mean, we think that God went around and said, male, what does that look like? Female, what do I want her to have? No, he spoke it, and it was perfect. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. And so I think that's part of our issue, that we want God to think like us. Like, we sit around and make hybrids and try to create stuff out of stuff that didn't create that to begin with. We do that stupid stuff.
Yes,
God does not do that.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
we do.
He is God. So,
and we want things to kind of agree with our presuppositions and assumptions and our choices and
we'll
things that we've done. We will shift, we will bend, we will break, we will mold it to make it fit.
Absolutely.
And sad thing about it is, though, it doesn't always fit. And you can't make it fit when it don't fit. And so, these are just things, like I said, that are going on in our culture, in our society, that we want to talk about on our podcast. And with this young man, hopefully things can get rectified in his life. With all the topics and the subject matter that we've kind of talked about here, it kind of highlights why we have to go back to at least consider the biblical perspective on all of these things.
Sure.
Because I think we're going to keep seeing more and more of these kinds of things happen, because it's not just the NFL. Somebody wrote an article about, the NFL dealing with its domestic abuse problem. And I'm like, you just saw a slew of abuse in Hollywood uncovered. And there's a slew of abuse in the business world, on Wall Street, in the financial districts, and everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere, folks. And it's happening both male and female. There are women in power who are abusing men. Yeah. There are teachers sleeping with male students. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And one of the things we need to do is have a show about this identity politics and about the currency of identity politics, because it's so lucrative nowadays that everybody even terms stuff like that, like the NFL's biggest problem and this person's biggest problem. It's sin, people, and it's everywhere. I don't care where you think you live. You can think you live in the most morally upstanding community. At the end of the day, there's something in there. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of human frailty, and especially human separation from God. So, I want to have a show like that, because we have to talk about this, because I'm so tired of everything being so politicized. I mean, it's just
they have politicized the humanity out of us. It's just, they really have.
You get to a point where you're like, just forget it.
Enough is enough, and we will indeed do that. Absolutely do that. But listen, we're so glad that you chose to push play and join us on this particular podcast and broadcast of Culture and Convictions. Please remember to like and subscribe if you want to know about future podcasts that are going to be posted here on this channel on YouTube, as well as visit cultureandconvictions.com, our website, and follow us on Facebook at Culture and Convictions.
And Twitter.
And Twitter as well.
Instagram.
And Instagram. See, she's bringing stuff on me. I didn't even know about all that. But anyway, we hope to see you around. We want to talk to you again. Until next time, God bless.